My mom was political. I'm political. I work on issues of justice, and I feel like it's deepened my understanding of some things because I really, really feel that I can see how systemic oppression contributed to my mother's death. And I know a lot of times in the world we say we don't want to politicize real life human occurrences like death and sickness and heartache and things of that nature. But I also come from the learning that the personal is political when you are living life.
My father died on June 20th, 2018. I was 37 years old, and suddenly everything I knew about myself was uprooted. I had so many questions, and there were so many layers to peel back. Who was my daddy? And who am I as a result? What was his legacy? And what will mine be? My mantra for 2019 was happy, healthy, whole. I was determined to face my grief and heal. And my girls were there with me every single step of the way. I found strength in my vulnerability, and we had open, honest, transparent conversations. And that's what we're going to do here in this space. So grab your journal, light some candles, pour a glass of wine, and get cozy. I'm Charity Bailey, and girl, we need to talk. Welcome back. The last time we spoke, I introduced all of you to my mom, affectionately known as Sister Janice, and we talked about her mother and her grief after she passed. We also talked about her relationship with my dad and how she was able to show up for us as he was transitioning. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk to some of my girlfriends who have also lost their mothers. We're going to talk about the legacy they left and who they are because they were able to experience the love of their moms. So I'd like to introduce you to my friends, Deanna, Collette, and Tanisha. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, hello.
Happy.
I'd first like to say that you guys are phenomenal women, so I know that your mothers were. Tanisha, I had the opportunity to meet your mom because I've known you for a very long time.
I'm going to start crying right now. So, oh, my goodness. Yes.
Yes, and Miss Josie was a beautiful human. She was always laughing and happy. We'd see her, around the workplace. And, I was away from my family. And so when I'd see her, she was like a tiny little piece of home. And so I've told folks what I know about your mom. So why don't you tell us about your mom?
My mom was a young mom. I mean, young. She was 20. She and my dad were 20 when I was born. And I just think when you're young, you think 20 is so old. And then when you get to 20, you're like, oh my God, yeah, this is.
Yeah.
So I just think from the time that, she had me to the time she left, like she was my hero. And she was strong. She was resilient. She had been through a lot. And I mean, she was a hard worker. She was very loving and nurturing. So I think that's where I got a lot of my attributes from. I mean, she was just a wonderful lady. And when you say that, you were it was like a little piece of home in her. That's how a lot of my girlfriends felt. And my mom was like a young mom. You know what I mean? Like all of my friends' moms were older, and she was the hit mom. But to me, she was just, she was mom. So,
Yeah.
It was nice to see how she touched people through other people's eyes. And it was always nothing short of amazing. We would be shopping, and she was a nurse. She was and we would be anywhere, and they'll be like, Miss Josie, how you doing? Like, everybody everywhere we go. But it was just because she was like a mom. She was so loving and nurturing to so many people. I couldn't say enough. I would take this whole episode. So I'm going to pass the torch along. But I mean, those are the most wonderful things that I remember about my mom.
Yeah, and she was fun and vibrant too. So folks were attracted to her. Collette, I know that you often say that about your mom as well.
Yeah, definitely. My mom, Pat Blakeney, the one and only, she described herself as a renegade, and so, and it was very accurate. She was from the country, Georgetown, South Carolina, where I was born too, but she had like a worldliness about her. She loved fashion. She loved politics. business. And my mom was definitely the life of the party. Like if she was in the room, you knew it. She had a loud voice. She was very tall. She was 6 feet tall, you know, and a bigger woman. And she would always say, "I ain't no little woman, you know, I'm gonna get all of it." And that's just kind of
I love it.
Yeah. And that's how she talked, you know. She was just, and even though she became like a headmaster of a private school and owned preschools, and people would want her to like put on suits and be very corporate, she was always like, "I ain't wearing no suit. I'm gonna wear these Vicky V." That was her favorite brand, these Vicky V separates. It's like this stretchy, comfortable material. She was like, "'Cause I gotta walk these halls. I gotta make sure these children are okay. And I'm on the move, I'm working." And so our relationship was centered a lot around us working together because she was the only single mom. And I was her only child. And so we were super duper close and would just like work at her schools and in our church. And she taught me and trained me and hazed me in many ways, I like to say. And just, she was definitely my hero, kind of, you know, similar to what you were saying, Tanisha. I just wanted to be more like my mom because she showed so much care for people and she kept it super real. And for a Southern woman.
Wonder where Collette gets that from.
Pat Blakeney all day.
Well, and you see a lot of your mom's attributes show up in both of you. You too, Deanna. There's a picture that we have, and I had to do a double take when we saw it because it looks so much like you. Tell us about your mom.
My mom, you know, she was my absolute everything. She was, you know, everybody says their parents or their mother or their father is their role model. But yes, my mom was that. Like, for a very long period of my time, I never saw flaws in her. She didn't show me her flaws until I was a little bit older. So she was like this ideal woman who I looked at, and, you know, she was a giver. She was a caretaker. Everything she did was for us. It wasn't until I was probably about, I'd say 16 or 17 in age where I began to have, you know, deeper conversations with my mom about who she was as a woman, because all I knew my whole life was mom, ma. I call her ma. Like, that's all I knew for a very long period of time, because that's a role she played in all of our lives. As much of her life that she spent trying to battle an illness, she was caring for people with the same illness who were not her bloodline. Like, she would just go take care of people, even in her own moments, to the point of sometimes even as children experiencing that, she had to remind us that she was still going through something. So that was my mom. My mom was the person where you could look at her and not know that she was going through something. Anybody, because she just had so much joy, so much faith, so much wisdom, so much to give to other people, even beyond just me and my sister as a family unit. So I love her so much just for the things that she was able to give me while she was living, but the things that she still gives me now. So.
And that's a real thing. I'm not sure that people really understand what we're talking about when we say that, because our parents really are the gift that keep on giving, and they still guide us even though they're not here. But in their absence, there is something that shifts in life. And I know what that's like, you know, as a daughter who's lost a dad, but in terms of losing, you know, your mom and the woman that you emulate and look up to, that's different. So I know that Deanna and Tanisha, your moms had a terminal illness. What shifted for you after she passed? What changed inside of you?
I think my drive, for me, it was my drive changed. You know, I wanted to do everything that I didn't do while she was too lazy to do while she was here, because you took for granted that she was here. So I would say my drive, because that's when I went back and to school to get my degree, because I hadn't gotten my degree. So I went back to school and I finished my degree. So definitely my drive.
And Deanna?
I will say my big shift was like responsibility and coping or not coping with emotion was the big shift for me. I will say in that process, I lost myself. And so in that, I had to get to a place where understanding I've always been independent, but I think actually losing my mom put me in this place where there was no net to catch me. My mom was the net to catch me through anything. Like, I was always independent. I always did my own things, but I always knew if anything happened, she had my back, and regardless of what I was going through, I was going to be okay. And so when I didn't have that, and I didn't have someone to run certain things by, or having my mother be the only person in the world that I actually trusted 100%, put me in this space of loss, because I didn't know how to cope or deal with it, even though she prepared me as much as possible for the death process as possible. Even in that, there's still the emotion part of that and the loss of that. There's still no way to fully prepare for it. And so that grieving process was very difficult for me. Sorry.
No,
Don't apologize.
There's no sorry.
I'd stop myself before I even started crying, but it's gonna come out.
Listen, and you don't have to stop yourself. Like, it's a safe space. And the whole point of this show is that, right? So that we can come together and let people know that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel this. My sister mentioned that, you know, it's almost like the balancing act is off because you have two parents and now one of them is gone. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm off center. And it doesn't matter how long it's been. I know, for instance, Tanisha, you lost your mom while I was in college. Deanna, when I lost my dad, you came back around and you were like, hey, because you had been at this, you know, about 10 years without your mom. And then Collette, we met shortly before your mom passed. And it's kind of been the thing of like, hey, friend, I'm here. I get it. And so I know that you're still trying to find that balance as well, too. So how is that? How's the process been for you so far, Collette?
It's been really difficult. My mom passed away a little over a year ago, very suddenly. And so for me, it has been kind of a sense of like the rug being pulled out from under you. And I'm honestly holding space for the fact that that's probably true, regardless of whether it's sudden, you know. But in my case, that's the reality. And so I think, you know, as far as how it's shifted me, my mom was political. I'm political. You know, I work on issues of justice. And I feel like it's deepened my understanding of some things because I really, really feel that I can see how systemic oppression contributed to my mother's death. And I know a lot of times in the world, we say we don't want to politicize real life human occurrences like death and sickness and heartache and things of that nature. But I also come from the learning that the personal is political when you are living life as a Black woman, as a Black person, and so many other identities. And so for me, my mom had always taught me, my mom ran for office when I was in kindergarten. I remember hanging out in her campaign headquarters and things like that, and always being really inspired by it. And when I think about her passing, the fire that was already in me that she gave me is made it burn hotter in many ways. It's helped me to see even more clearly what so many of us are up against and what the stakes are. But, you know, on a human level, I'm just still grasping at straws every day. Just trying to find balance in each day.
And you mentioned, you know, being a Black woman and how, I mean, let's be honest, being a Black woman in general and our health and, you know, emotional health and mental health and trying to juggle. And all of you have mentioned, you know, the strength that your mother's carried. And Tanisha, one thing that has stayed in my mind, I'm accustomed to seeing you in charge and moving things. But even when your mom passed, like I remember seeing you move around her service and still, you know, greeting everybody. And I believe your sister was pregnant at the time. And I just felt like you were just holding it together. And I was like, how is she doing this? How did you do that?
The grace of God. Because I honestly don't know. My sister and I talk about this all the time because I just remember it was just me and my sister, and we had to do everything. We had to, you know, plan the service. Everything was really on us. and we did it on purpose. It's not like we did it on purpose, but it was just who we were. You know, it was just who I was. You know, my sister, I feel bad for my sister because she had just graduated from college. She had only been home for about a year and a half, you know, before my mom was even diagnosed. So she's trying to get back home and learn to enjoy, you know, her mom as being an adult. And then, you know, this happened. So when my mom was diagnosed, it was like we were always on top of stuff. So we didn't have, not that we didn't have time to grieve, but it was just like we're trying to stay on top of all the business because that's what we were taught. Like you take business. So there were days, you know, we had a really good support system in place. My dad was great with us, but he, you know, he was there for emotional support, but everything else we did on our own because we wanted to make our mom proud. So it's that drive. It's that we got to make her proud. You know, we have to do the things that we know, you know, to really celebrate her and who she was. But to lose your mom, and you know, especially having a relationship with her the way we did, it's by the grace of God that you get through that, because it's unexplainable.
So you go through the strong parts, right? But when do you stop to feel it? Like, at what point do you go, all right, I have to allow this to settle in and feel all of it?
I don't know. Like for me, it just comes in different spurts. You know, like some days, like I'm having a great day, and then to this day, it's been 15 years since my mom passed away. So it's like I am having a great day and I'm kikiing and he-heeing and loving on my nephews and all that kind of stuff. That's another place where, I'm sorry, just to kind of get off kilter, but that's kind of where we put a lot of love into my nephew, because my nephew was born 4 months. My mom passed away. So I think a lot of what, strength we got, or, where we found our happy was with him. So you cry in the dark. You don't usually, I didn't cry like outward unless people were talking about my mom.
Yeah. Well, I recall you reached out to me and you said, just feel it, let it happen, and you kind of explained that to me, but it's not anything you really explain or understand until you're going through it.
Exactly.
And so you just kind of go through it. And Deanna, I know that it's been quite some time for you as well. Do you ever find yourself angry that she's gone or that she was taken in the way that she was?
I would say for a lot of years, actually, I was angry. I became angry before her passing. There was a period of time, I'd probably say the last year of her life was very difficult. And I was primary caretaker. And so watching the transition was very difficult to watch for a year. And so I became angry and short with people and patients. I became a very different person during that time frame. And so after her passing, before her passing, I did everything that I needed to do. I didn't grieve too much during that process. It was just anger during that process. I think her passing, I was tired at that point. I was physically tired. I was mentally tired. I was drained. And I felt guilty for feeling a sense of relief when she passed, which sent me on a brief path of depression. And so in that process, I think for a lot of years, I still had anger that resided. I did get therapy. I went to therapy quite a few times, which was very helpful. But in that process over years, I was still angry. I didn't celebrate Mother's Day. I didn't send cards to, I have a stepmother, I have aunts, I still have, and these are things that I was going through myself. And it was like an unspoken thing within our family, where my dad just had a conversation with me this year about why I never sent my stepmother Mother's Day cards. And me and my sister had to have a conversation with him about our grief process, because our family just started talking about emotions maybe this year. So I think the past couple of years have gotten a lot better as far as anger. And I think this is and I'm not typically this emotional. And I don't usually release my emotions, but this time of year is like the anniversary of her death. And this is the time I do allow myself to feel those feelings, which is why it's coming out now. But that's what I do. I give myself this month because the feelings come back, like not on choice. Like I'll forget sometimes when I'm trying to figure out, like my body just gets triggered and I'm trying to figure out what it is, but my body knows what time of the month it is, time of the year it is. And so just getting through that process and allowing this time of month, allowing myself to just feel the feelings, going through old photo albums, to laugh, to cry, whatever I'm feeling. The sadness is that I can't have a conversation with her and her to respond back to me. But the joy is knowing who my mother was as a woman and knowing that I had the opportunity to be loved in the capacity that I was loved. And there's not many people in the world who get that same type of love.
Can I ask Deanna a question?
Yes.
Absolutely. So how long has your mom been deceased?
It's been 11 years.
Okay. So how long did it take you or have you started acknowledging Mother's Day yet?
I started acknowledging Mother's Day actually this year for my family members and having conversations with them. Like that's what it took. That was the conversation with, my dad and my stepmom and them understanding, it's been a process for me. It's been difficult. It hasn't been easy, but they weren't things we talked about. It was just like an unspoken thing. But my family, they know now, but I'm also a more open person myself now, which has kind of forced the emotion conversation because I'm doing the work for myself. So.
Gotcha. I was just wondering because it took me 10 years to start acknowledging Mother's Day. So now there's 5 of us now that don't have moms. So we celebrate it. We do brunch and we swap stories about our moms. So we get together. It's like it's the Grieving Girlfriends Club, we call it. But I mean, I think it helps, it really does help. But I thought I was being selfish. That's why I was asking you how long it took you, because I thought I was being really selfish because I wasn't celebrating anybody. I had grandmothers, I had a stepmother. I had aunts. And the only person I would acknowledge was my sister because I knew she was going through something, and she needed to have an escape too.
I think this is important because so much of it is feeling weird. I know I asked Deanna, like, am I always going to feel this way? When am I going to stop? Because both of you mentioned, where things trigger you. And suddenly you go from being okay and having a great day to just being floored and feeling helpless. And so I'm glad that the two of you had that exchange because Deanna, something my therapist offered to me is that there's no wrong way to do this. And you offered it to me as well. But I think Tanisha placing emphasis on the fact that the first 10 years she wasn't able to do it either goes, all right, do what you can do when you can do it, how you can do it. Tanisha, I know that we have to let you go here shortly. So I want to ask you, what did your mom leave with you when she left this world?
Great memories. She was just so encouragement, love, an abundance of love. I'm not gonna say that, but I mean,
you can say whatever you want.
No, because I was gonna be like property,
Yeah, no, say that, please.
Because she was smart. She left my sister and I some property, generational wealth. It's Black women, doing it, and doing it well. But I think that she left a great legacy in that she showed me how to be a woman and how to lead and how to love and to have a balance of both being, because people have a problem with women saying they're strong. I don't think that that's a negative thing. as long as you articulate it properly. I think when we're talking to one another, we know what strong is. And that's, my mom was the epitome of strength. Just being a single Black woman, bringing up two young girls in Compton, you know, it's just that she, I don't know. I just want to, there's so many things she left me with, but the most is just love and strength, because that's what gets me through all my days. You know what I've been through on the work end and on the end. And you need love and strength to get through difficult times. So I would say those are the two most wonderful things, you know, and just how to be my own woman and not to take no stuff. You know.
Yes. And you don't take no stuff from nobody. So I know that business calls. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you,
we
ladies.
honor Ms. Josie. Yes.
Bye.
See you later. So we just heard from Tanisha what her mother left her. Collette, what did your mom leave you?
You know, when I talk about my mom these days, I have to talk about her sisters too, because they were a package deal. There was 3 of them. And my mom's youngest sister passed away almost 20 years ago now at a young age. And her older sister died about 4 months after she did. And so the grief journey that I'm on is very much a grief journey of mourning all of them and my grandmother. And so
do you think you did mourn any of them before?
I think this funny, not haha, but interesting thing is that I had just started therapy a few months before my mom passed, because work and life was just, you know, making me realize that I needed help. And I think everybody needs therapy. But and my therapist said, you know, it sounds like your family has never truly grieved your aunt. It's referring to my mom's baby sister. And I told my mom that on the phone. I said, you know, Mom, the therapist said maybe we haven't truly grieved Sophie. And my mom was like, well, that's interesting. She was like, yeah, that's probably right. And it's kind of similar to what you were talking about, Deanna, as far as family not really delving into emotion. It was like that for us as well. My aunt also passed suddenly. She was sick, but she didn't tell us. She was 43 years old. And it was just like, it just rocked us. It just cracked us open, so much so that we didn't talk about it. And when I told my mom that my therapist honed in on that, my mom said, well, maybe your therapy gonna be my therapy too. And we kind of laughed about it. And so, you know, I definitely think that's the case, Charity, that we were holding a lot of pain that was unresolved and undiscussed over the loss of my Aunt Sophie. And I think that definitely impacted my mom and her other sister. So, but when I think about like what my mom, you know, has left with me, so much, you know, she left me with a lot of oomph, to use her favorite word. You know, I like to think anyway that I'm like her, that I got some get up and go about me. I like big earrings. I like, you know, having short hair 50% of the time, which was always her thing. She was like, have short hair and big earrings. That's your look. Yes. She was like, that may not be everybody's look, that's your look. That's how I want to see you. I want to see you looking good and feeling good. I don't want you down. I don't want no man keeping you down. I don't want no job keeping you down. Like, that's how she used to speak to me. So I like to think that I carry that pizzazz and that advocating for self and a love for people that society maybe doesn't show love to. Mm-hmm. My mom was real intentional about, you know, opening her schools in like really notorious public housing areas of the city. And people would be like, don't go over there. And she'd be like, you know, our people are there and our people need and deserve quality education. So that's where my school is going to be. And like my uncle would always, this is very, very wrong to say. Let me just preface it. My uncle would say to her, Krish, that was a family nickname. Yo, people, he'd be like, you know, what you doing over there in that so-and-so housing project? My mom would be like, that's where my people are. And he'd be like, yo, people gonna shoot you. And my mom,
sir,
so wrong. Let me just say, so wrong. But my mom would, you know, obviously did not pay attention to that. She did her thing because she just loved our people. She loved Black people. She loved people that are needing a little bit of help, and she loved being able to help. So I feel like she left that with me. That's probably the biggest thing that she left with me that I try to carry forward.
Yeah. Well, Deanna mentioned earlier how her body feels it when it's that time of year. All right. And you mentioned how we as Black folk carry so much. Right. There's a book that another lady told me about called The Body Keeps the Score. And I haven't gotten a chance to look into it, but it's about how trauma and pain and grief and stress and all of those things wear and create tear on our bodies. And so your mom's death was sudden, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think that's impacted you internally and how you show up in the world right now?
Oh, I'm wrecked, and I say it flippantly, but it's true. If it were not for therapy and my grief group, I would be very much not able to function. My patience, again, something you mentioned, Deanna, my patience gone, my ability to weather conflict, because you're going to have conflict in life, whether at work, if you're an entrepreneur, in the grocery store. But my ability to weather that and not just go off the handle was very much compromised. I found myself having rage moments, and that wasn't my personality. That isn't my personality. My health definitely is, taking a turn, as far as anxiety, thinking every time my loved ones walk out the door, something's going to happen. I'm gonna get another phone call like the one I got last year. So when my mind is racing constantly, and I'm gonna be really real about it, because I feel like people don't talk about grieving. We don't talk about mental health, and we don't talk about grieving in particular. And so for many of us, it's a mystery, and we think we're the only ones. And I just hope, if somebody is watching it, they can know that they're not the only one. So, my mind is racing a lot of times. What could I have done differently? What could we have done differently? So, my mind is still constantly replaying everything leading up to that day, everything of the 37 years I knew her, and everything of that year, that month, that week, that day. And I don't know how long that lasts. Somebody maybe can let me know, but it's constant, and I can't sleep a lot of nights. And so my therapist and my grief counselor before that have helped me to understand that journaling can help. And so I do that. And that meditating can help, and just to get the thoughts out so they're not on a loop, so that I can function, I can work and think about, the things that I need to think about during the course of a day, because life doesn't stop. The people around you have a lot of sympathy and a lot of care, but also they got deadlines that they need you to meet and projects, and you got to get your car oil changed. And, life just doesn't slow down and acknowledge the fact that you have completely been hollowed out. You still have to show up in some way.
To your knees. And that's good. It's important for you to acknowledge it and to honor it as it's happening. It's a lot. Deanna, do you still have sleepless nights?
I don't have sleepless nights. I developed this thing called avoidance during the process. And so this is why I take September as well, when I realize I need to release some of that emotion, is because avoidance was something that I used as a defense mechanism just to get through. So the avoidance was there in the process of her transition. After her transition, I was kind of in the same space of not functioning as Collette. And I didn't work. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I was extremely small. I had lost so much weight. And I was always smaller when I was younger, but I was at a very small size that I had never been at before. And I was in the bed and I was sick. And I think that it really took one of my closest friends to come in, because I kind of outcast and I didn't let people in after my family left after the funeral. That was the first time I actually had time to myself to actually deal with the loss. And so I kind of just shut everything out. And And I was in this space of extreme grief where I just sat in it. You know, a lot of times people don't sit in the grief, and I just sat in it literally for like 3 months, to the point there was no more money left. I had to go back to work. Like I had no other option but to get up and go out and do work. And I had my best friend. She actually, you know, she came in the house, she pulled the covers off, all the dirty tissues that were laying around. I was a hot mess, but here I have this sister who's not blood who came in and was like, your mom wouldn't want this. But my promise to my mother was to make sure that my younger sister would be okay. And so I had to, again, step into this level of responsibility that I wasn't used to having. Like, I was always like the more, you know, a responsible person, doing my own thing, but having that level of responsibility where I had made this promise to my mom, and like knowing that I didn't have anybody to fall back on, I then made the decision that I would be the person that my sister could fall back on if anything happened. And so I assumed that responsibility. And so for so many years, I just avoided dealing with the emotion, and it doesn't go away. I won't say it doesn't go away. I learned to live with the loss, which I think that's a conversation that I've had with a lot of people, like moments where like I don't have a thought about my mom, or I get to a point where I'm missing her and I don't realize I miss her. I have dreams, very vivid dreams, where I remember I had a conversation one time with my sister, and I was like, dang, I don't remember what it feels like to hug mom. And she was like, I don't either. And that night I had a dream. That night she had a dream. And I don't remember my dreams, but the dream was so vivid and so real that I woke up in the middle of the night and I started writing. Yeah. It's not something that I do. But I know that avoidance, as much as it's not good, and I'm trying to work through that, avoidance is what has guided me to the place that I am. And I'm trying to get to a place where it's not avoidance, and I'm learning to cope with the loss.
Yeah. And you know what, Charity, I just want to say too, I would, if I don't before the end of this conversation say this, I would be so sad. My husband has been a rock throughout this process of me trying to cope. You know, my back went out. I stopped being able to digest food. I mean, like literally my esophagus was inflamed. All kinds of things. I still honestly probably wouldn't eat every day if he brings food to me in my little office in the house as we work from home now with everything going on. Because I just, a lot of days don't have energy or I have just enough to do the least. And if it wasn't for my husband and my family, of course, but we live in Arizona, so far from all of my family in South Carolina. If it wasn't for my husband, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Yeah. Well, it's those people that step in, whether it's your husband or your friends, you know, the neighbor, whoever, those people carry us like in this low space. Deanna, you mentioned, you know, and you said you didn't remember your mom's hug. There's certain times where I'm like, I just miss my dad's hug. You know, he's the biggest man in the world still to me to this day. And that's my safe space. And then, you know, I'll wake up or go to sleep and dream about him. Or I'll wake up and something is, to your point about, is it ancestry? Is it, you know, just like subconscious? It's like the answer. I think that's the way I process it, is that it's him saying, I'm here. I got you. You're doing all right. You good. And as my dad would say, 9 yards at a time, keep going. You got this. And so this show showed up as that. Like, I woke up and I wrote down 12 episodes. But it came to me through a dream. Like, there's so many people who are dealing with what you're dealing with. And we're all just trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, that when you said that, it really just jolted me. You also mentioned, Deanna, that you were caretaking for your mom. And we don't talk often about the caretaker and that role. and how it can wear on a person, and how you do feel guilty for being relieved that they're not here. So what do you say to other caretakers who might be right in the midst of trying to figure it out and maybe feeling some of the emotions that you felt?
I would first say, if you are not in therapy, make sure you are. I know for me, it was a very difficult process. I was on autopilot. I didn't feel at all like I had to do, because no one else was going to care for my mom the way that I cared for her. Like, my mom was on hospice. We were home. I brought my mom home. Like, nobody's going to take care of my mom the way, what do I have to do? Okay, I'm going to do. Like, things that would make me squirm, or things that I don't know how I did a lot of what I did, but I would say get therapy. Because a lot of times, a lot of things that you're going through as a caretaker, you don't take care of yourself, you don't eat, you don't sleep. Allow people to help you if they offer to help you and they have the ability to. I know for me, in the last few days, I finally had family members fly in, and I just went like an hour to a different city just to like mind elsewhere, where I'm not focusing on the day-to-day of what has to be done, because it requires a lot of strength to actually be a caretaker for someone who you love, who's in transition, and especially for people who are doing that at a younger age. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay to feel that. Feel the emotions. Feel angry. I think I was just in a place where I didn't want to feel anything, because I just had to do. I just had to make sure that things were going to happen, and I took care of business. Like,
yeah,
don't just allow yourself. I would say, don't allow yourself just to be on autopilot. Feel what you need to feel. Handle what you need to handle, but get help. Get help.
And all of you mentioned therapy. And this generation, our generation, is one that is very pro therapy and pro healing and pro take care of yourself. And so I appreciate you both for sharing and for sharing that. We're going to wrap up here. But if there was one thing that you could share with your mom right now today, what would it be? Collette, we'll start with you.
I would share with my mom, I just got a promotion at work, Mom.
Hey,
yes.
And, she was like really into, excellence as far as whatever it is you decide to do. So she wasn't like super materialistic, but, she would be proud. And I would let her know that I'm continuing to use my voice. She always pushed me to use my voice. I was a little shyer than my mom. And so she would always be, pushing me to kind of come out of my shell. And then when I come out of my shell, she'd be like, oh, all right. Well, you do got it in you, huh?
It is. Huh?
So I would let her know that I'm going even harder. I'm going harder, Mom, for you, because of you. And so that's still what I'm still pushing myself to not only do the like types of things she wanted me to do, as far as trying to pursue excellence, but also to take care of myself and stay well, because I know that her greatest hope was for me to be good, for me to be healthy and strong. So I'm trying to do that for you, Mama.
Deanna, if you had a life update or something that you would say to your mom right now, what would it be?
Well, I do believe that my mom is still with me in spirit, and that she is looking over me. My mom had this obsession with angels, and I do believe that she is my guardian angel, and I would not be where I am today if it was not for her faith, not even mine. And I have faith because of her, but not in the way that she had faith. And so I know she knows where I am and what I'm doing, but what I would say to her is, thank you. I thanked her so much while she was living, but I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for the experiences, for her doing her best from what she knew, what she had the ability to do. And the things that she taught me in home that I didn't learn from a school or from another person, the things that she taught me and the things that she taught me unknowingly just by watching her and witnessing her. And like, while I'm doing the work for myself right now and going through the emotional process to just become a better person and to deal with growth, like I re-tap into memories that I lost, and it gives me newfound understanding of who I am and why I am and where I come from and the cloth of what I come from and how much of a giving and loving person she was and how selfless she was, and like understanding where that spirit comes from her is in me. And I'm just thankful. And I know that her spirit is in me, but like just knowing that she is with me, even when I can't feel her. And then those moments when I need it most, I always get some sort of sign or validation that I'm gonna be okay. Yeah. I think the thing that I miss the most is just yelling, "Mom, Ma, I love you." Like I remember I'd be at the bottom of the stairs and like I would just yell out, "Ma," just to say I love you.
Yeah.
I would just say I love you and thank you. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end on that note because you're right. We're going to be all right. We lean in on each other. We love on each other. And I appreciate both of you and Tanisha. I know that both of you are strong, vibrant women. You know, you run businesses and you work for corporations and you're leading the way. Tanisha as well, you know, she mentioned earlier that she had done so much, you know, after her mom passed because she realized that she needed to get some things done. And your mother's left the world you. And it's such a great contribution to me and to the world. So on that note, glasses up. So I'd like to propose a toast to Miss Patricia, Miss Vanessa, and Miss Josephine, and to the daughters that she raised who have become amazing friends of mine. I love you both. Cheers.
Cheers. Love you too.
And cheers, Tanisha. Thanks for joining us as well. We appreciate you. We'll see y'all next time.
I can hear my mom now. Oh, so you drinking alcohol in my name? That's what you do? You know I raised you in a dry house, Collette.
On the next Girl We Need to Talk.
I remember the feeling every time I had a moment of excitement or a new job or a milestone in my son's life where I literally picked up my phone and was ready to dial for my dad. And then I realized that I couldn't do that. And I think that's when it hit me the most.
Thank you for watching Girl We Need to Talk. You can find me across all social media platforms at Miss Charity Bailey. Make sure you like and subscribe.